Hey everyone. This is Tina and Karen. Karen Talks. Gotta relax it with a little Super Mario because I've had a kind of a stressful week. How do we ever get to this point? Oh. So, basically, I had to go to the hospital yesterday. It was so bizarre. What it was is I went into work that day. Well, actually, let's start from let's go further back. When I didn't know you swam here. When I went to okay, so basically I was at the gym on Monday, in which my mother actually sent me a text, because I don't really follow the news too often. I mean, I do, but I don't. And she was the first one to inform me about Jay Inslee, the state of Washington's vaccine mandate for all state workers, and the city of Seattle had a mandate for all its workers, right? And, well, without revealing too much information, I don't work for the city of Seattle or the state of Washington, but I do work for a government inside Washington state. And just knowing how things go here, when I was informed that Seattle and Washington were going this way, I knew that my city's government would be next. And I'm unvaccinated. I'm unvaccinated not because I'm selfish, but because there's no reason for me to get vaccinated, really. And I'll get into that in a bit. By the way, I'm going for the 100 coin star in this game. So it was Monday night, and damn you, Mario! Damn it! I don't want to go all the way down there. It was Monday night, and I was at the gym working out. I got a text from my mom. She told me about that, and it just kind of wrecked my mood. I was having a pretty good day, pretty good week, really. And let me pause just because I want to really get this first part out. I was having a good day, good week, and then that news sort of like floored me. Not because I didn't think it was coming. I always knew that this was coming from way back in March of 2020 when Fauci and everyone was saying it's 2 weeks to flatten the curve. At that point, I knew at that point, I knew that one day it would be a mandate for everyone to be vaccinated. Because I don't trust them. Actually, no, I don't want to speak that, actually. I didn't know that, of course not. I didn't even know we'd have a vaccine. And I was grateful when the vaccine came out. Right. Okay, so my sort of experience with the pandemic, it was all over the place. I, like a lot of people, panicked at first. Okay, so when the news of the pandemic first started to break out, people were talking about it. Me and my workplace, we had morning meetings talking about it. What's going on? What's the possibility that we'll be sent home? Yada yada yada. My initial attitude was, why is everyone overreacting? We have these sort of viruses every other year, and they usually amount to pretty much nothing. We had the Zika scare, the Ebola scare, we had the swine flu scare, the bird flu scare. We've had so many just virus scares. So, but this one, but the way that things were going, it became more serious. And I remember vividly making a bet with my buddy Ralph. He said, dude, no, 2 to 3% of the population is going to be wiped out. We're talking millions dead, man. Millions. I bet him 12 cases of beer that wasn't going to be the case. But then I actually gave in to the hysteria. I saw what was happening too. I saw okay, everyone's reacting really, really negatively. It's getting to the point where Trump and the Democrats were actually working together to a certain extent. That meant something. It must be real. So I panicked too. But then around June in the summer with the George Floyd protests, and all of a sudden, like, it snapped, it clicked, all of a sudden everything changed. The media was no longer preaching doom and gloom. They're saying, oh yeah, if you go out and mass gather for these protests, that's good. Well, how does a virus know what you're protesting over? Isn't mass gatherings bad? That was what was like very, very basic knowledge at the time. Okay, so when you gather to protest the lockdowns, bad. When you gather to protest George Floyd's death, basically a junkie who overdosed, that's what happened, people. I'm sorry. I mean, Chauvin might be an asshole. He could be, and maybe he contributed, but Floyd overdosed. Don't know what to say. Maybe that'll get taken off YouTube. I don't know. But around that time that happened, I saw the media basically had this two-faced persona. If you protest lockdowns, then you're a terrible person who's trying to kill grandma. And if you protest George Floyd's death, then you're actually a good person, and then the coronavirus wasn't going to get you. So at that point, I realized, okay, yes, COVID is real, but the reaction to it is incredibly political. And then I started to do more research, and I found out, okay, so here's where I'm at. So basically, I was able to ascertain that my risk group for my age and my health is like, I'm at like a 0.1 to a 0.2% likelihood of death. Okay, so at that point, from that point on, I was like, I'll do your masking, I'll do your social distancing, but at the same time, I'm not worried about this in the least bit. I'm just waiting for you all to basically move on with your lives. This, like, get this little power fetish out of your way, get it out. But it became increasingly clear that more and more people were just brainwashed, and they weren't listening to actual data, actual statistics. And then the vaccine came out, and I was incredibly happy because that meant, okay, we'll be able to go back to normal. I was far wrong. I was probably more thrilled that the vaccine came out than anyone because I knew my mother really took to the panic, and I thought I was going to be able to see her again now that she's going to be able to be vaccinated. And I'll be able to see my grandmother again. I was seeing her during the pandemic, but we were doing the social distancing. We were meeting outdoors. We were just, things went relatively back to normal. And then most people got vaccinated. I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know what we're at in this country, but we reached a point where it's sort of hit a wall in terms of we have more supply of vaccines than we have demand for them. And the politicians couldn't let it go. They couldn't let bygones be bygones, or just say, okay, well, this is how much is vaccinated, and now the unvaccinated have to worry about COVID. That would be a perfectly acceptable position to have. So now I'm at the point where my government is actually telling me to get vaxxed or lose my livelihood. I'll get fired. And just so you guys know, my job is 95 to 99% outdoors and me by myself. I'm not risking anyone. I work in a shop with like 15 people. I'm one of 2 people who are not vaccinated. But I'll say this about the other guy. I don't think that he has the legitimate reason to basically say no to the vaccine. Well, he doesn't. He knows that the COVID doesn't really affect him, so he's fine. But he also believes a lot of other things I don't agree with. My point was that the vaccines work. He doesn't think the vaccines work. I know they work. I just know that I'm also not at risk, and I'd rather just take a risk for natural immunity. Because there's some studies out of Israel that are actually showing that natural immunity might last longer than COVID. Than the vaccine even lasts. That's why they're proposing these booster shots, because the vaccines don't actually have as long a immunity life as you might think. But essentially what happened was everyone got vaccinated, and it wasn't enough to please the powers that be. They wanted 100% of people vaccinated. And the reason why they want 100% of the people vaccinated is total control of your lives. It has nothing to do with stopping death. The amount of people dying of COVID these days is almost less than Alzheimer's. It's not a major concern for most people. And all the unvaccinated have had the opportunity to get vaccinated, and they said no. So, what are all these restrictions for? What are all the restrictions for? I'm gonna die there. It happens. I've heard some people who are vaccinated who are worried about the restrictions because, like, God, I hate these unvaccinated people because they're making life intolerable. I just want to go back to normal. The unvaccinated are not making your lives intolerable. The government and the powers that be are making your life intolerable. The unvaccinated are not asking you to do anything special to protect them. They just want to be left alone. A poll came out that said like 5% of the population are unvaccinated and want restrictions to protect them. 5%. That's the amount of that's what all these restrictions are about, is protecting that 5% of people. It's not right. Well, now getting more back to my personal story. Tuesday I came about, and even though I'm the only one who's really unvaccinated at my shop, I had like 3 or 4 people come up to me and say, man, like, hey, listen, like, I hear what's going on. If they try to fire you, you got to fight this. You got to go to your union rep. You got to fight this because it's bullshit that they're going to be mandating it to you. And I had like 2 or 3 people who told me they only got vaccinated so they wouldn't be harassed. Okay? What is the point of this vaccine if at least somebody like half the people who are getting vaccinated aren't even afraid of the pandemic? They're just doing it so you don't give them shit. Like when the polio vaccine came out, people wanted to get it because they were deathly afraid of polio or smallpox or whatever. Because those were legitimate pandemics. Those were legitimate scares. COVID, if you look at the data tables of who's dying from this, the average death of COVID is higher than the average life expectancy. Everyone under 50 really doesn't have anything to concern themselves about COVID. You get it, you get sick, and you're fine in a couple days, maybe a week or 2. Maybe you get hospitalized, but you're definitely not dying of it. It's like 0.1 or 0.2% exactly. So I basically said that, like, I wanted the natural immunity. Between natural immunity and taking an experimental vaccine that we don't have any longitudinal studies on yet, I was just going to take my chances with COVID. That's what I told people. And that's not enough for people. And the funny thing is the media lies so much to people. They lie all the goddamn time. And they feed them lines to give you when you're talking to them. Like, I was just having a conversation with one of my coworkers today. And 90% of what I told him, he had never heard before. Like, I told him, the chances of you being hospitalized as a fully vaccinated person is like 1 in 10,000. The chances of you dying as a fully vaccinated person from COVID is like 1 in 27,000. So why are you afraid of the unvaccinated? Why are you so deathly afraid of it? My immunity does not affect your immunity. Everyone who's dying of COVID these days is unvaccinated. And here's the thing. They were offered the vaccine, and they said no. They had a choice. You may not like their choice, but it's a free country, and they said no. Well, it's a supposed free country. America is nothing like it used to be. America has completely lost its way. I might as well be living in China or Russia, really. What the fuck is going on in this world? Now, I don't want to say the whole country. It's probably just my crazy state. I know that Texas and Florida got the right idea, and a lot of other states definitely aren't doing anything like this, so that's good. But it sucks living in my state because I love my state in the sense I love my family, I love the nature, I love the people, but god damn do I hate the politics. God damn do I hate them. Just let people be. I live in and just so you guys know how not free Washington is, we had a bill on the table back in 2018 that passed. It was about car tabs. So basically here in Washington, we have really expensive car tabs because they wanted to fund sound transit, which no one uses, by the way. They wanted to fund it by increasing the car tabs. And when people started to see that their car tabs went up by like 50 to 100%, it's like $300 plus for your car tabs. $300 plus for your car tabs. people were saying like, wow, I didn't know it would go up that much. We need to actually do something about this. So we had an activist who basically said we should put a cap on the amount of car tabs that people should spend. And $30 car tabs. That was put on the ballot, and it passed by 55%. And the state of Washington was like, no, you guys voted wrong. We have to do another vote because you guys voted wrong. You didn't understand what you were voting for. So they put out a lot of information. So did the opposition. And people were like, oh, okay, you're right. I didn't know what I was voting for. Then it passed by 58%. But the state of Washington was like, no, we're still not doing it. So anyone who believes that like the state of Washington is free or democratic, it's not. It's a dictatorship. Jay Inslee's a fucking fascist. Fuck him. All right. Sorry, I had to get that part out because I really hate that guy so much. So fucking much. Anyone who voted for him, you're either an idiot or you're comfortable with suppressing people's freedom. In which case you're evil. In my mind, at least. Well, now I'm at a point in my job where I have to choose whether I get vaccinated or whether I just lose my job. Or I could fight it. Either way, this was causing me a lot of stress. So much stress that I went to the hospital with an anxiety attack. I really just was in panic because I don't want to lose my job, I don't want to get vaccinated, and I don't want to fight it. But it's not even that I don't want to get vaccinated. I was actually thinking today, like, what would I do if it came down to the wire? And I have this sort of idea in my head that what I would want to do if I was a truly principled person is not get vaccinated, then fire me, and then I would get vaccinated. Because in truth, I'm not against the vaccines. I think they work and I think they do a lot of good. It's the principle of people should not be forced to inject something into their body against their will. Especially since, like, there's no reason for it. Vaccinated people, if you're listening to this, why are you afraid of the unvaccinated? 1 in 27,000 people one in 27,000 vaccinated people will die of the COVID. And then they'll say, it's not about protecting you, it's about protecting the vulnerable. Vulnerable people who have chosen not to get the vaccine. So why are you so scared of the unvaccinated? Well, it's about the potential mutations that might happen in the future. And like we have to basically eradicate COVID so that we can avoid these future strains. All it takes for a mutation and a new strain of COVID is one infection. One infection. So let's like go to the extreme. Let's say that the United States managed somehow to get 100% of the people vaccinated in the United States. 100%. One person in India, not vaccinated, new strain. One person in Malaysia, not vaccinated, new strain. One person in China or Russia or Africa or anywhere, a new strain that could be potentially break through the vaccine. COVID is a part of life now, people. It's a contagious virus. Just like the flu, we have a seasonal influenza. We'll have a seasonal COVID year. People will die of it, usually the vulnerable, the elderly, and the sick. But not as many as you might think because we have vaccines. Once again, if you look to the 7-day average of people dying from COVID, people are talking about cases like, oh my God, Delta is spreading. So many people it's crazy. The amount of like people dying of COVID is like something like 350 a day. I think it's gone up a little since the last time I checked but like the caseload is about where we were at January levels. But the death load is like 1/10 that of January. It's unbelievable. And people still are afraid of it. Why? Because they watch the mainstream news that just basically misuse statistics to scare people and just point out the worst case scenarios. I can't tell you how many times I've logged into Yahoo and seen like some headline about I was 20 years old and I thought I was safe from COVID, and my God, I was begging for the vaccine then. That's anecdotal. What's the overall data? What's the chances of a 20-year-old dying from COVID? It's like not that fucking high. So you're pointing out like the rare exception to the rule and saying, people, you should be afraid of this because this is what's going to happen to you. It's not going to happen to you. More likely than not, this is a rare case, and I feel bad for the guy. I do. But we should not be basing our decisions on the worst case scenarios if they're not that likely. Everyone in life needs to do a risk-benefit analysis towards their decisions. If you're afraid of the 1 in a million chance that something might bad happen to you, the way you're living your life is far too conservative, far too risk-averse, and you're not having a good life for that. We are so willing to give up our freedoms for security. It's really sad. For the first time in my life, I'm ashamed to be American, really. I thought Americans cared about freedom, and I still believe that there are those who do. Texas still believes in freedom. Florida still believes in freedom. And about 30 other states in the country still believe in freedom. But my home state, no, we're not American. I don't know what this is. This is fucking Russia. I don't know what it is. It's not America. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm still debating that internally. On one hand, I have to think about I have to think about the big picture. Like, my family should come first, my wife and my potential kids. And this job is too lucrative, too good for me to lose. But I also need to be a principled person. Because if I'm going to be able to teach my kids about good morals, I need to be actually stick to my morals. I can't violate them. So this is a real tricky thing. Now, I'll say this once again. This is only about the mandate. I don't give a shit about taking the vaccine. If I fight this vaccine, and they fire me because I refuse to be vaccinated, I'll probably get vaccinated the day after I get fired. Because this is not about the vaccine. It's about the principle of you should not force people against their will to do something they don't want to do. People might say, like, hey, every employment is about doing what you don't want to do. I think we draw a line between, let's inject this experimental vaccine into your body. We should draw a line there. And once again, I might be completely off in saying that the vaccine is harmful. I don't really have any evidence to suggest it is harmful. I've seen some evidence to suggest it might be. I know a lot of people who have had bad reactions to the vaccine, but it's usually just like they get sick, but they get better in a day or two, which, okay, that's kind of how I felt about the flu vaccine. Like, when I got the flu vaccine, so back when I was volunteering at a children's hospital, it was required that I got the flu shot. I never had the flu shot before I started volunteering for the children's hospital because I never thought about it. Fine. The sickest I've ever been in my life is after I got the flu shot. Both times. Because I was volunteering at the children's hospital 2 years in a row. And you had to get the shot each time. That was the 2 times I've gotten sick. The sickest I've been in my life. I went to the hospital one of those times because I was so sick. I was like coughing up blood. That was not right. And so I kind of had this position where, like, I'm not against vaccines because I know it's scientifically illiterate to say that, but at the same time, my personal experience I can't deny, and I'm very, very skeptical of vaccines. It's like, I tell people when I tell them like this, I say, like, I know that there's no science or rationale to say what I'm about to say, but I'm against vaccines because my personal experience with them is god-awful. The 2 sickest times I've been in my entire life. Like, I was bedridden, I was coughing up blood, I felt like I was going to die for like 2 days, was after I got the flu shots. So, and I've never been sick outside of those. It's the fucking weird thing. Like, every flu season, I feel maybe I get a little bit of a cold, maybe, but I feel fine. Like, in a day or two, it's like a day of runny nose and a day of like, but I'm not bedridden. It's just something I can take Dayquil and I go through. Crazy. Well, the question of get vaxxed or get fired. I don't know. Will I be able to find a livelihood if I leave this job? I don't want to leave this job. I love this job. But at the same time, it's an unreasonable thing to ask of employees Just say you have to get vaxxed because we got to make sure we stop this virus, and this virus is never going to be stopped. It's always going to be there. Once again, if 100% of all Americans get vaccinated, America does not have the authority to invade the Congo and to make sure there's not a strain that actually exists there. Once Pandora's out of the box, it's out. And you basically just learn to live with it. And Joe Biden said you're going to learn to die with it. God, that guy's a fucking asshole. It's hard to call him an asshole because I don't think he's entirely sentient. I think he's basically just a walking, talking zombie. And I don't know if he really knows anything. Like, the other day he was saying something about, like, he was attacking Ron DeSantis in Florida, who I love. I think DeSantis is going to be the next president of the United States, and I think most people know that. I think Biden knows that, too, so that's why he's got to go so hard on Florida. Because if you don't know, Florida is making the news for being its caseload. Hey, look, Florida has this huge outbreak. You see it in the headlines everywhere. Yeah, Louisiana has a higher outbreak. The only reason that you're hearing about Florida is because Ron DeSantis is a political threat to Biden, and Louisiana's governor is a Democrat. Even though by the numbers, Louisiana is doing far worse than Florida. By the numbers, Florida's doing one of the best, actually, to be honest. Something they have like one of the highest like vaccination rates for people over the age of 75, and they also have like by deaths per million, they have something like they're like 27th in the country. And they're the third most populated state and the oldest state. So, by the numbers, Florida's kicking ass. And Ron DeSantis is letting people be free, and they have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the whole country. Yeah. So, one of my thoughts is, like, me and my wife, we talk about this a lot, is like, if it wasn't for the weather, we'd move to Florida. Because at least we'd be free. If it wasn't for the weather, maybe we'll end up moving to Texas. I don't know. I could see myself living there. She's got a lot of family there, so it's good. And like Florida, it understands freedom. So that's important. Really, here's the thing. If what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to my union rep and say, I don't want to get vaccinated. Are you going to fight for my right not to get vaccinated? You're my union. You're protecting workers' rights. If they say, no, we're not going to represent you, we want you to get vaccinated, then I don't know what I'll do next. If I keep this job and I do get vaccinated, I'll tell you one thing. I sure as shit am canceling my union dues, because if you guys aren't even going to stand up for me when I'm calling upon you to stand up for my rights, then why the fuck am I paying you? I'm serious. And if I do get vaccinated and keep this job, I'm just not doing the extra mile at all ever again for this company. I'm not trying to be a leader. I'm not doing any of this stuff. I'm the kind of worker who does the extra mile. I do a lot of things. I volunteer to do a lot of things that my other coworkers don't want to do because it's a lot more. It's extra work for not extra pay. I just won't do it. Because this organization doesn't give a shit about me, doesn't respect me, and I'm thinking, like, why do I gotta do extra mile shit for people who don't like why do I gotta do the extra mile for people who don't respect me? So, anyways, it's been on my mind. I thought I'd share it, and I'll let you guys know how that's going. For Tina and Karen Do the Tube, I am Karen. Sayonara.